What's your take on the battle for talent, what you're seeing, drivers, trends?
So I think firms that really get it are starting to look at the paraprofessionals as a group of themselves and are starting to offer them things outside of just fitting them in with the associates or with the legal assistants. So I often say, and people hear me say it all the time, that the paralegal is like the middle child because they're not the associate and they're not the legal assistant. So where do they fit? And typically firms have just put them wherever it works. But there's been a change in that where firms now are starting to drive professional development programs that are specifically set for paraprofessionals. I'm out there on the street all the time telling people that I think actually the paraprofessional career right now is taking off and is only going to grow because, as you said, associates are moving to the States, they're going to startups, where with paraprofessionals, if you treat them fairly, like Karen said, you treat them fairly, you give them great work, you give them client contact, they're not only doing great work, but they actually become the client retention tool because the client gets to know them and speaks to them because they don't jump around so much. They're actually great in marketing and client retention. So I think good, like firms are really hopefully starting to get that and making sure that they're looking at them as a group and treating them as revenue generators.
That's a really interesting point, Karen. And I think we'll go on to that too, but actually how the role is changing itself. And I'd like to dive into the client relationship management part too. Tiffany, any comments on the battle for talent from what you work with lots of law firms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really looking at exactly what both Karens touched on, is really looking at what's driving their value, looking at the work-life balance, what hybrid model is available to them, but also just making sure that there are stretch opportunities, development opportunities in their roles. They have outside learning to go back and say, hey, I feel valued at this company. I feel my voice is being heard, but I also feel like there are ways for me to develop and not just focusing on, okay, we need to get new talent. It's about retaining that talent that's in the door. And I've seen it in my career and just from chatting with amazing individuals that there's so much talent out there. And sometimes we forget about the ones that have been here for years and understanding what are their needs. Do they feel valued? Have they been heard by us?